Welcome in, everybody. Happy belated Thanksgiving. Hope everybody is at least able to sit upright when watching this show. It's the Awesemo Fantasy Football Show. Hopefully, you ate as much as humanly possible on Thursday. It's the only day all year where you have the excuse to be as gluttonous as you can. But we also had three big games to talk about here, and also this slate on Sunday that's getting more and more interesting by the second, with injury news and a lot of things happening here. So let's get to it. Myself, Tara in the house on this Friday. Nick Lepre is hanging as well. And for Matt, as you've been hanging with us all week, my friend, Mike Awesemo is producing. We'll tell you all about Yahoo, what's going on below us coming up in a couple of minutes. But Nick, Tara, Nick, hope you all had a fantastic Thanksgiving. I ate as much as I could. I actually didn't eat ahead of time. It was one of these strategy things where I tried to stay as hungry as humanly possible. And the two things that I'll always go for as far as leftovers are concerned, the sweet potatoes and the stuffing, because those to me are the most outside turkey. I get it, but turkey's tough to come by in a bigger family. So I have to get what I can get. So I don't know, Tara, for you, Nick, for you, but Tara, like what's the most reusable, reheatable, the best leftover there is for you? But for me, it was, all right, I need to make sure I get the sweet potatoes and need to make sure I get some stuffing.
I cannot believe you said that, because those are the exact same two for me. I don't know what it is about it, but I don't know. It's just, it's potatoes. It's always good. And then on top of that, stuffing, I mean, I don't know. It's one of those foods that even throughout the day, you can keep coming back to it. You don't have to heat it up. I mean, I love it. Love it. I did eat a lot. I did cheat a little. I got really hungry. We started to eat, or we were going to eat around like 1 o'clock, and I cheated a little, got hungry, cooked a little bit breakfast. But other than that, I was good to go.
Nothing wrong with cheating a little bit, Nick.
Yeah.
Exactly. I like apple pie, and I feel like the apple pie, as it gets later in the day, for some reason, it just hits different at like 11 p.m.
Yeah.
Well, because you're probably inebriated, all banged up. Like that's why everything hits different at 11 p.m. versus 11 a.m. Come on, man.
Oh, yeah.
That's very true.
Do you have a good one at least?
Yeah, for sure. I had a fun time yesterday.
Good. Now, we had three games here as well, so I don't know how many guys you were out there, both of you were out there rostering, and we'll kind of go in order. That first game, we really expected very little. We got very little. We know Swift on one hand, Montgomery also provides a little value here. But outside of that one specific matchup that Mooney had previously that he took advantage of yet again, I just don't know. And, Tara, we can start with you here with this Bears-Lions game, Nick, as well. I just don't know, especially after watching Thursday, how much more there really is with either one of these two teams. The quarterback situation in flux with Chicago, kind of the Swift and Montgomery staples, if you will. But other than that, you're really reaching.
Yeah, my biggest take, I'll start with the Detroit side since that's a little sadder. So we'll start sad and then we'll get a little bit more positive. But on a sad note with Detroit, I mean, there's so little there. I know when you look at TJ Hawkinson, he was somebody that we were drafting as a top 5 tight end. And a lot of people were very hopeful that he would be, with the lacking in the wide receiver core, that he would be that number one guy that's stepping up, getting 100+ targets, being highly productive with them. And it's just been very lacking. When we sit there and we look at his production and we're getting 3 of 3 for 35 yards, a touchdown to save it, thank goodness. But altogether, it's just not really coming through, and he's not the player that we drafted him to be. You look at that wide receiver core, hopefully, maybe Josh Reynolds can step up here and provide a little bit of something with that connection he has to Jared Goff. But overall, outside of Swift and the unfortunate injury, there's just really nothing to look forward to here in this entire offense. On the positive side, with Chicago, we've got a couple of positives for me. It's Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet. I love the direction that Mooney is heading. Came into the season really hoping that his star would shine. He's so talented. And even before Allen Robinson went out, he was the target leader. And it's weird to accept. It's kind of hard to get to that point where you're saying on an offense where there's Allen Robinson, that Darnell Mooney is the wide receiver one. You kind of want to stay in denial and say it can't be that, but it is. He is the wide receiver one of that offense with Allen Robinson, and now without Allen Robinson, it's just escalating to a whole new level. And when we're seeing 100 plus yards in multiple games, I'm starting to feel very comfortable with him, and I'm loving the direction it's heading.
Nick,
Yes.
any thoughts, or do you want to move on to the other game?
No, I was just going to say that normally, like on Thanksgiving, maybe your uncle says something to mess everything up. You know what I'm saying? But you all know who really messed up Thanksgiving. It was DeAndre Swift. I was expecting big things. Then he gets hurt. Made me very sad. But as someone who has held Jamal Williams the whole year, despite him doing absolutely nothing, if you have Jamal Williams now going forward, if DeAndre Swift's injury is something very serious, then Jamal Williams could step in and have a very big role in this offense. 15 carries for 65 yards in that game. He also had 5 receptions for 18 yards. I'm still a little bit sick, but it is what it is. I thought I had to cough. I sucked it back in. It is what it is. But Jamal Williams, I love going forward if DeAndre Swift is hurt. And like Tara said, it sucks that TJ Hawkinson isn't as involved as everyone thought he would be. I mean, they don't really have any wide receivers. Josh Reynolds, he just came off the street. He appears here, and now he has 70 yards and a touchdown last week. I did not see that coming at all. It just sucks that Hawkinson, 3 for 35 and a touchdown. That's a good game, but at the end of the day, what we expected for this season is just down the drain. And I feel bad for the people who really were paying attention to this game. 16-14. What a dumpster fire. Eitan, you have anything to add to this?
The people that were paying attention, I think, were doing it out of circumstance. Like, do I hang with family and talk about fill in the blank and risk, something political or something like that taking over the dinner, or do I sneak out and watch football? Just so happens to watch this. Look, I think you'd rather probably watch a rerun of a previous Thanksgiving game as opposed to this one. But I will say the point on Hawkinson, I think, is probably the most frustrating. I know we talk about our MVPs or MFPs each week. In this case, we had 3 games on Thursday. And just from a player prop standpoint to rostering him in another league, the targets, that's what I'm most surprised about. Yeah, okay, give me 335, 1 off 7-8 targets, and I can live with that at least there was a direction to throwing him the football. But Goff coming back, you would think at the very least it would lend to it, and I just don't know how sustainable Dalton is. All right, let's move to the other 2 games here, because I think there's going to be a little bit more to take away at the very least. And it kind of goes into, who was most valuable, who was most frustrating across the board here. Clearly the Cowboys as a whole, that defense just does not show up. Raiders able to get one in overtime. Saw the kick there. Saints get absolutely manhandled. So we'll talk about New Orleans and really Buffalo in a second here. The Dallas concern, part of me, I think, is more on the ground at this point, trying to figure out who this team is, who this offense is. 33 points on the board, Nick. We start with you and get to Tara in a second here. 33 points on the board, yet 25 and a touch for Elliott, 36-0 for Pollard. A game that high scoring and nothing from the running game. I don't know how long-term concerning that is. The air is fine. No Lamb, no problem. Dak's going to throw for days. But really, any concern on the running game first with Dallas?
Yeah, so it came out earlier today that Ian Rappaport said that the Cowboys may end up altering Ezekiel Elliott's usage as he deals with a bruised knee, and that his knee injury could be lingering all season if the team doesn't rest him. So that's quite worrisome if you have Ezekiel Elliott. If you have Tony Pollard, obviously, that's great news. But if they do limit Zeke's usage, that is going to be quite annoying in terms of fantasy football, especially if Zeke's a guy that you're really hinging on to potentially be a top 5 back down the stretch of the season. This game was certainly ruined by the referees. There was just way too many flags. Now, some of them were warranted. I do agree with that. But at the end of the day, I think there was like 200 plus penalty yards in a game. I don't think I've ever seen that before. So, Terry, you got anything to say about that?
Yeah, unfortunately, this is the second week in a row we've seen a very similar stat line with Ezekiel Elliott. He just got the benefit of a touchdown this time. But yeah, it seems like there is something going on there, and it makes sense from a team perspective, because they're a team that's trying to push for the Super Bowl. They want to be successful in the playoffs, and so resting Ezekiel Elliott makes sense. Unfortunately, it's hitting us at the wrong moment, because this is the time when we want our fantasy players to be turning it on and finishing strong. And it looks like we're not going to be able to potentially depend on him as they kind of go a different direction and try to save him up. So unfortunately, we got to kind of maybe reevaluate how reliable he is, which is crazy for a top 5 running back to be thinking about that. But yeah, they've got to figure out this running game. The pass game, was surprisingly good. I know a lot of people were concerned how they were going to face this Vegas defense with literally all of their weapons gone, but we had Cedric Wilson step up 7 of 10 over 100 yards, Michael Gallup over 100 yards as well on 8 targets, and then Noah Brown out of the middle of nowhere coming in as well. So I mean, they were able to get it done from that perspective. I was happy to see a good bounce back game for Dak. Dalton Schultz was fantastic as well, but again, yeah, the running game, they've got to figure that out if they really want to move forward and be successful down the road.
Yeah, I think we'll get to a couple of questions here on the chat coming up in a second. I think the biggest question now moving forward on the other side is if you were rostering and starting, which I imagine each and every week people are, Darren Waller, what happens now moving forward? And we'll talk about some pivots, and I'm sure another tight end or two will come up here. All right, before we hit the chat, I know we have a bunch of start sits. We're going to get to them for Tara and Nick. Let's round out that final bump here on Thursday night. And this one was kind of the easiest to call from a mile just because New Orleans is down so many people. So, Tara, if you want to just take a crack at the Saints and try to figure out if there's anything worthwhile here at all. The quarterback situation looks brutal. No Kamara, the running back situation all banged up as well. We have a DUI now, suspension to factor in for Harris. So this whole thing has gone from bad to worse now for New Orleans.
Yeah, there is not much to take away in an offense where, unfortunately, we look at that wide receiver core and we look at who's the wide receiver one in that situation. And oddly enough, despite the fact that he's actually generally not the target leader, it might actually be Traquan Smith because he's been the most consistent. But when you're calling your wide receiver one somebody that is getting a maximum of 5 receptions a game, that's a really bad situation. So yeah, I don't really know where they had. And then on top of that, you look at that. Sorry, you mentioned that cold. I've been dealing with for like 3 weeks now.
Both of y'all are playing hurt. We appreciate
it. We're fighting through. But yeah, unfortunately that running game did not fight through for the New Orleans Saints. We've seen Mark Ingram step in and be successful in Alvin Kamara's absence. We felt comfortable with starting him as an RB2. And then we head over to Tony Jones Jr. And unfortunately, it was just wildly disappointing. 16 carries, 27 yards. I mean, it is Buffalo's defense, but we saw last week that when the talent pulls through, Jonathan Taylor went out there and he did his thing last week against the Buffalo defense. And I wasn't expecting that from either of these running backs, but whoa, I was not expecting it to be this bad. Just no production. And without Kamara and without Ingram, it seems like there's nowhere for us to turn to in this offense.
Yeah, something else to add, why did the Saints pay Taysom Hill all this money and then he's not on the field? I don't understand that. Why are you paying this guy? Literally last week or this week, they paid him all this money and he's done nothing. I don't get it at all. Makes no sense. They probably could have had Drew Brees come down from the booth and play quarterback. It would have been better than Trevor Siemian. So that's kind of my thoughts on this. This Saints offense is just a dumpster fire until Kamara returns for fantasy. You probably don't want anything to do with it at all, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I mean, on the flip side, real quick, Nick, anything with Buffalo outside of the obvious? I mean, I know Matt Breida, that's probably the one little difference is that Breida gets a lot of work, Moss inactive, and then Singletary just kind of in his spot.
Yeah, I was not surprised at all that Moss was inactive. I'm pretty sure people were talking about that all week, that was potential to happen. I mean, Matt Breida did nothing in Miami last year, magically goes to Buffalo, starts being good. Typical Dolphins fashion there as a Dolphins fan. You hate to see that. But yeah, Matt Breida is definitely a guy that if he's still available on your waiver wire, I'm definitely looking to scoop him up. I honestly wouldn't be surprised at all if he was better than Singletary down the stretch of the season. And I think Zach Moss being a healthy scratch may continue. To pivot into the kind of wide receivers here, Dawson Knox, the tight end of the team, I was very in favor of playing him last night in DFS on the main channel. I talked about him for a while because I love Dawson Knox. He came in clutch last night. Tight ends love scoring in the showdown slate or in the night game, whatever you want to call that, the primetime games. Nick Van Nett scored a touchdown, I believe, too, for the Saints. So that's just how it works on the night games. And Stephon Diggs, obviously, played well as well. But something that I want to talk about actually is Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders. I don't know where you guys lean on this, But every single week, it seems like it's so up in the air which one you want to start. And that is very frustrating to me as someone who tries to predict which guy to start, if it's Cole Beasley or Emmanuel Sanders, because last night, in reality, it was neither of them who were very fantasy relevant. What do you guys think about that situation?
Yeah, for me, it's a very interesting situation because at the beginning of the year, we saw literally an even split. If Josh Allen was throwing for 270 yards, we were seeing 90 yards for Diggs, 90 yards for Beasley, and 90 yards for Emmanuel Sanders. And it was, very disappointing for people who are rostering Stephon Diggs because we're sitting there and we're drafting him to be a potentially top 3 wide receiver, hoping for that repeat from last year. And we just weren't getting it. It seems like they're shifting away from that strategy that they were using before, kind of spreading the ball around a little bit more evenly. And they're focusing on Stephon Diggs and giving him all of those opportunities. He's been very productive in comparison to Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders over the past several games. So I think we're just starting to see a turn where we can only depend on Diggs, and Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders are just going to be a low end flex option if we're a little bit desperate.
Yeah, that's honestly, I agree perfectly with that. I mean, last night we saw Gabe Davis get some more usage as well, making everything even more confusing, especially with how good Dawson Knox has looked. I feel like that basically just ruins all the upside that Beasley or Sanders have, unless there was to be another injury inside the offense, which obviously we don't root for.
Yep.
I will say that from a dynasty perspective, what I'm seeing from Gabe Davis is very encouraging because we were hoping he would kind of maybe step forward this year. Emmanuel Sanders coming in kind of nipped that in the bud, unfortunately. Yeah. But, when he comes in and when he gets these opportunities, and it's very few and far in between, unfortunately, he does look good. He looks talented. He's being productive with them. So I think long-term, we may be having something there for him from a dynasty perspective. But yeah, it's very interesting to see him getting involved as well.
We have a bunch of questions here on the chat, start sits that we'll get to. Hit that thumbs up button, please. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed, of course, to the Awesemo Fantasy Football channel. We have links below. Told you about those. 2, we'll give you $10 just to mess around with, just to play with on Yahoo. And then if you're new to Yahoo, you haven't signed up yet, don't worry, click that link below it. And when you click that link, sign up upon your first paid contest entry. We're going to give you 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Let's start at the top here. Jalen on the chat. Should I start Kareem Hunt? Now, this opens up our Sunday slate conversation. I know the Browns are itching to get Hunt back to work. Patterson as well here, the question. So, Tara, let's start with you. Kareem Hunt or Patterson? Nick, you want to take a shot as well?
Gotcha.
Oh, man. I would probably still, if Hunt is playing, I'd probably feel comfortable with going with Hunt because Atlanta, unfortunately, I trust Patterson. I've been relying on him throughout the season, but I think Atlanta is taking such an aggressive downward turn that we really don't know what to expect out of them. So, and honestly, it depends on which one is the healthy, becomes healthiest first. Whoever we've got confirmation is going to be playing, will be active. We don't have a game time decision with them. That is probably the one that I would be going with, the one that I can trust more to be within the lineup throughout the majority of the game.
Yeah, I would probably argue the way of Cordero Patterson, but it's not like something where there needs to be a huge argument here. They're very close. Kareem Hunt, when healthy, could easily be a top 5 running back. Same thing can be said about Cordero Patterson. But like Tara's saying, the Falcons offense just looks atrocious recently. It seemed like at the beginning of the season, things weren't going well. Cordero Patterson was still performing, but then they started to look really good. And now they're on a downward spiral into the depths of the earth. But I do hope that Cordero Patterson can continue to perform as I have him on all my fantasy teams. So I'll lean with Cordero Patterson. I think he could be a top 5 guy, but same could be said about Kareem Hunt, especially if they look to heavily utilize him like they did earlier on in the season. But I'd lean Patterson.
All right, let's keep it moving here. Kicks, plugs, full PPR flex, Van Jefferson, Rashad Bateman, or Ty Johnson. Nick, why don't we start here?
Yeah, so with Rashad Bateman, I loved him earlier on in the week, but it appears that Hollywood Brown is going to end up playing, which definitely does kind of take away some value in terms of Rashad Bateman. Van Jefferson, obviously, Odell is now there. Robert Woods is out. I think that Odell could potentially be seeing a very high target share in this game. Maybe they just want to feed him the ball, be like, hey, Baker, look what we could do if you just throw the guy the ball. Maybe that ends up happening. But I think the riskiest choice with the highest upside is Ty Johnson, and that's where I would lean. I think he is the number 1 running back on the Jets. My eye test tells me that. Does the stats necessarily tell you that? Maybe, maybe not. But I do think he's better than Tevin Coleman, and without Michael Carter, I think we see a high dosage of Ty Johnson. So that's where I would lean. Definitely more risky, though. If you want to be a little bit safer, you go Bateman.
Yeah, could see that.
Yeah, for me, I'm going with the safe option. You're completely right there. I'm going with Bateman. It's not a ton of upside, but when we look to last week, again, I think we need to feel comfortable with Lamar Jackson playing when he's out. Unfortunately, it's not a good situation for any of those wide receivers. Bateman was 3 of 6 last week, but when Lamar Jackson is playing, he's been consistently seeing a pretty good target share. And the only thing that's been missing is that touchdown, that elusive touchdown that we're waiting for. But overall, I feel guaranteed that we're going to get double-digit PPR points out of him. So if you want to go with the safe option, as long as Lamar is playing, that's the safe option right there. But I definitely agree with you. I know we've got Ty Johnson, Tevin Coleman, which one? And it seems counterintuitive because the production on the ground just isn't there with Ty Johnson regardless. But I do think he has the most upside, particularly from a PPR perspective. So in terms of those backs, I'm definitely leaning towards Ty Johnson.
All right, go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say, it's just so funny that everyone is so on Ty Johnson and Tevin Coleman. That's just going to end up being Michael P. Ryan. I've said that multiple times, that he's just going to be the guy that does really good.
So now rush him. Rush to roster him, by all means. The leprosy curse in full effect here. All right, so let's keep it moving. Tara, we'll throw it back to you. Another one on the chat here. We'll bring Patterson back into the fold here. So it's Patterson or now DK Metcalf in a full PPR.
Oh, I know that it has been incredibly frustrating with DK Metcalf.
Yes, it has been.
I mean, that Seattle offense, we talk about Atlanta, that Seattle offense is going on a tailspin downward as well.
Yeah.
But I have to hope that Russell is able to recover and turn things around. And when I look at DK Metcalf, the thing about him is that with Cordero Patterson, it's a volume play. We want him to be getting those double-digit targets. We want him to be getting production on the ground. But with DK Metcalf, it's not a volume play. We're looking for him to be that home run guy. So I think if I'm looking for the player with the most upside, who can be that player that goes out there and he catches a 20 or a 75-yard touchdown, I want to go out there and I want to make sure that I'm putting DK into my starting lineup.
Yeah, I would honestly lean with Cordero Patterson. I just don't trust Russell Wilson at this point in the season. Like, he's clearly hurt. I don't know why he's back, but Geno Smith would be no better than this injured version of Russell Wilson. So at the end of the day, I think DK Metcalf is still amazing. He's still one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. To me, it's just a concern of the usage. Whereas we know when Cordero Patterson is healthy, that this guy could easily get 15 plus points a game. So I would lean with Cordero Patterson. But obviously, if you're looking to like make some type of a trade or something, DK Metcalf inherently has way more trade value than Patterson, strictly just based off of name value.
All right, Tiggins, let's keep it moving. I love it here because now there's a thread. We have Patterson brought back to the conversation. We had Bateman as the safe option against Ty Johnson. No love for Van, but that's fine. We'll put Van in the back burner here. So another question here, Higgins or Bateman? And this is now feeding into concern that anybody rostering and really starting T. Higgins may have. So Higgins or Bateman, I'd imagine, and Tara, will start with you. I imagine that analysis that you have for Bateman, that both of you had laid out for Bateman, is going to apply here, where at least you have a clear-cut, safer option between the two.
Yeah, Bateman is definitely the tougher or the safer option. If you look back with Higgins prior to last week, it hasn't been incredibly productive, but when you actually make the comparison, their stats are actually pretty similar. And if I think about the one that has the most upside in terms of that ability to get 2 double-digit targets, to potentially get that touchdown that we haven't seen in a long time, but we know it can be there, I might lean towards T. Higgins being the guy with the more upside. And, against that Pittsburgh defense that has been a little bit suspect, if it were maybe another situation, I would be a little less inclined, but Pittsburgh is, I think, 26 in DVOA against the pass. So I think I'm feeling good about the Cincinnati offense as a whole this week. So I might lean towards Higgins.
Yeah, I would have to agree as well with T. Higgins. He's been a huge disappointment this season. Like you said, in the touchdown category, he hasn't scored since week 2. That's very long ago from where we're sitting right now. He was one of those guys that I was very excited about all offseason long, because all the reports were that, obviously, was that Jamar Chase sucks, that he can't see the football. Like they said, he needs the white stripes on the football to see it. He needs the college football. And then in training camp, he's playing bad. In the preseason, he's playing bad. And then out of nowhere, he's amazing. So that does obviously put a hamper on T. Higgins. But I would argue as well also that he does have more upside. And eventually it's got to click. The guy is this talented. So I would go with T. Higgins, even though he's been a disaster for all of this season, if we're being honest.
Yeah, that's why I think that safer play comes in. All right, one more. We'll hit some week 12, 30-plus performers, sneaky snart start. Pardon me.
Sneaky snarts.
Yeah, I don't know what that is on the way out here. All right, August, and this is a full PPR here. We'll do this in the flex spot. Freeman, so you've got three options here, Nick. Devontae Freeman, Jeff Wilson, or your guy, Myles Gaskin.
Yeah, so if Elijah Mitchell plays, basically there is no value for Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson got all the volume last week, just didn't perform. But you could make the argument that if Elijah Mitchell plays or doesn't play, that Jeff Wilson should see similar volume. But I'll kind of throw him out for that question. I like Devontae Freeman a ton this week, but I would probably go with Myles Gaskin just on the hope that the Dolphins finally understand to give him the ball. But it doesn't seem like they'll ever understand that, right? They add Philip Lindsay this week. They also brought in Duke Johnson last week. We saw have some value in that game. Patrick Laird. I don't know. I would go Gaskin, but not very confidently over Freeman. It's very close to me between Gaskin and Freeman. Do you have a stronger lean, Tara?
I'm with you 100%. I want to say Devonta Freeman so badly. The production has been there. He did at least, it does seem to be that he has surpassed Latavius Murray in his time off with the injury, and he's been productive with it, but it feels hard to trust. And I think when you look at the upside, it really feels like the potential is there with Myles Gaskin because it's a different situation. There's not a time series situation. He does have PPR upside as well. So when I look at them playing against that Carolina defense that has been, it's been good, but it's been vulnerable. So I'm not too opposed to going with Gaskin over Freeman.
All right, so let's hit it here. We'll head into the weekend. It's a shorter week slate by all means on Sunday. We don't have really only two games. It's not like it's completely diminished by all means, but two added on Thursday night. So let's hit 30-plus point performers. This is what we usually do, Nick, on the Friday show, where we take one person, one individual, try not to be too chalk, although every now and again, one of us straddles that line of chalk and no chalk. So you're new here, and we figured we'd throw you into the deep end first, right, on this Friday show at least. You're a vet on the channel, you, myself, and RC each and every Sunday at 11:45 a.m. Eastern time. Get you ready for the lock slate. And then on Mondays, myself, Tara, and Lofty are normally here, but you never know when you'll see Nick during the week. He pops up all over the place. Do you have a non to quasi chalk 30-plus point performer that you want to start off with?
Yeah, I don't think this would be considered chalk based upon how he's played recently. So we're going to go with Matthew Stafford. I think a lot of people are very down on Stafford after the last couple of losses. Oh, the Rams are washed up. Odell cursed them. I don't believe that. I think Matthew Stafford could have a great game up against the Green Bay Packers this week. It is in Lambeau, which is a little bit worrisome, obviously. Anytime another quarterback has to go to Lambeau because it's so loud there. But hey, I think Matthew Stafford could have a huge game here. We've seen him play big this season. He has been a little bit down recently, just like the whole LA Rams team. But I think he gets back on the saddle this week and plays quite well up against the Packers and potentially beats them in Green Bay. So my 30-plus point performer, I guess technically taking a quarterback in itself might be a little bit more chalk, but hey, we're going Matthew Stafford.
I mean, it's, Stafford, Lions Stafford, I think would be less of a chalk play, but Rams Stafford, you straddle that line by all means. It wasn't full on chalk. Okay.
Yeah.
Tara.
First of all, I will say thank you for saying that Odell has not suddenly cursed and brought down the entire Rams organization. I appreciate that point of view. But my 30-plus point performer, I talked about it a little bit when I talked about T. Higgins. It's going to be Jamar Chase. Against that Pittsburgh defense, I said, yeah, it is 26 in DVOA against the pass. So they are very vulnerable through the air. And it's been a while. It has been a while since we have seen a boom game for Jamar Chase, and he and Joe Burrow are due. And it's not like he's been a particularly high target guy. His highest target total on the season has actually been 8. But recently, the receptions just haven't been incredibly productive. And that's really been the problem with him. Last week, he was 3 of 6 for 32 yards and 1 touchdown. The touchdown saves it, but 32 yards is not going to do it for us. In my opinion, I think that he and Joe Burrow turn things around, and the connection is there between those two. And I'm feeling pretty good about this being one of those really special 30-plus point performances by Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I love that call. Jamar Chase has just been so good this season that it's honestly shocking to me, at least. I guess I was way too low on Jamar Chase, but he's been looking good all season. And this Bengals offense is amazing. They looked really good last week up against the Raiders. I understand that the whole, Joe Burrow didn't perform. I know Eitan was mad about that earlier on in the week, but it is what it is. So I think that Jamar Chase any week has the potential to score maybe even 40 points. So I love that call.
Yeah, definitely not happy with Burrow's performance in a game in which they ran away with it. I'm going to slide one in here, and this is a risk. I get it, because we technically don't even know what the quarterback situation will be like. But because of what he's been able to do already, and granted, he's on one, if not the worst team in the NFL, but he's going up against a squad in Houston that gives up a lot of points in yardage to the wide receiver spot. I'm going to go right back. This is where a lot of people would jump off Elijah Moore, because he had this huge game last week against, of all people, Nick's Miami Dolphins. But I think you can get a really great game from him against Houston. I don't really care this week, who's throwing him the football. Long term, that's a different story here. But I think they go right back. They clearly found something. He was involved. I saw this 81% of Flacco's pass dropbacks. Moore was running a pass route. It's not going to change if it goes to somebody else if Flacco can't play because of what's going on with COVID. So I don't have any issue at all with the quarterback spot. I'm going to go back dangerously. I know it. I'm going to go back to Elijah Moore here for an explosion against the Houston Texans.
I like it.
All right. Now, we're winding down here, so hit that thumbs up button, please. Make sure you're subscribed as well. We have these 2 links below for you, courtesy of Yahoo as well. Now, let's get a sneaky start or two. We'll see if we can sneak in a question, a start-sit question on the way out of here as well. I see a quarterback question that we're going to have to get to from Kicks before we get out. But sneaky start. Terry, you want to start? Do you have 1 or 2 you want to get out here?
Oh, yeah, I've got 2. I'm ready to go. I'm very excited about these 2. Laviska Shenault is someone who I think a lot of people, including myself, we wanted him to be a lot better than the production that he's had this season. But I think finally, with Jamal Agnew out for the season, I think and I hope that finally it is Chenault's time to shine. They're facing Atlanta, who we've talked about. They've been on the struggle bus. They're having a really tough time on defense, stopping anybody. And last week, we saw against a tough San Francisco defense that Shenault was 5 of 5 for 50 yards. So I think that was a little preview of what we're going to see now with Jamal Agnew out. I think the production is going to be an uptick. So I'm feeling good about going ahead and feeling comfortable with plugging in Laviska Shenault as a low-end flex option. My second option, do not judge me for this, it's Evan Ingram. I know that we have our qualms with Evan Ingram. I get that. The Giants are a terrible team. And quite frankly, what are we going to get out of Freddie Kitchens? We truly don't know. We can hope to be positive about it. But what I'm looking at is Philadelphia. They are literally the worst team against tight ends. So I am just going with statistics here that this is the perfect opportunity for Evan Ingram to have a good day against Philadelphia.
Yeah, I agree. There's a great opportunity watching the Eagles. It's like they don't even prepare for the tight end position. So you're definitely onto something there. It mitigates the damage to people's eardrums when they hear Evan Ingram, I think. It's, oh, yeah, the matchup. Yes. There you go. All right, Nick, you got 1 or 2 on the way out?
Yeah, Dan Arnold, tight end of the Jacksonville Jaguars, going up against the Falcons. Dan Arnold put up, I believe, a goose egg last week, so that's not great to hear. But at the end of the day, he is still a key focal point in this offense. He's yet to score a touchdown, so maybe in true Jacoby Myers fashion, it just randomly happens this week, hopefully, for us. So I like Dan Arnold a lot up against the Falcons defense. I mean, the Falcons just got eviscerated by the Patriots last week, so we could see the Jaguars play well in this game. And then maybe a not-so-sneaky start, but still kind of sneaky because I don't think everyone is still sold on him. And that's Jalen Waddle, my receiver on my Miami Dolphins, going up against the Panthers. Again, the Panthers are a very underrated defense, I think, but I still think that Tua is just going to force feed this guy the ball. He's going to get 9 potential targets in this game. He had 9 targets last week, 8 receptions, 65 yards, and a rushing touchdown against the Jets. So I think he could have a repeat performance up against the Panthers.
Look at this on the way out. Eduardo with the super chat. Weak at running back, starting Johnson. Need to start one of the following: Hilliard, Foreman, Ronald Jones, Sony Michel. Oof. This is not easy. We saved the toughest for last here on the way out. So, Tara, why don't you get a crack at this, Nick, and then we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, it's not easy, but I think you unfortunately do have to go with Hilliard. It's a gamble because if Jeremy McNichols does clear concussion protocol in that event, then we've got a situation where we don't know which one of them is going to move forward, but it's the PPR upside that does it for me out of all of those 3. So I would lean towards Hilliard and just cross my fingers and wait and see that McNichols is going to be out on Sunday.
Yeah, I would go with the YOLO Ty Johnson and really hope that they just give him the ball. I think all of these guys are huge guesses. Like Ronald Jones hasn't done anything all season. He scored last week. That's all fine and dandy, but I don't think that's necessarily going to happen this week. So I'd go with Ty Johnson. I do like your call, though, on Hilliard, as he does look good. We just got to see what happens with McNichols, obviously. So I would go Johnson, but both of those are your best options by far. It's not even close, in my opinion.
All right, lastly here, Cam or Stafford. And this one's a little tougher, I think, on the surface when you look at short line for the Panthers on the road. You mentioned that game against your squad there, Miami, which is not necessarily a pushover by any means. I'm also curious to see what the weather's like in Green Bay before I jump all over Matthew Stafford. So why don't we start with you and your Dolphins being involved in this question, Nick, and then Tara, you can end it and we'll all officially say goodbye.
Yeah, I like Matthew Stafford better. Obviously, I called him my sneaky start. I think Cam could easily have a good game here. I know that technically him and Lamar Jackson have a similar play style. And obviously we saw what happened to Lamar Jackson against the Dolphins defense, but I don't think that's going to happen this week. I think Cam should easily have a pretty solid game and could easily be a top 5 quarterback, because it's just unfair when you have a quarterback that can run for like 60, 70 yards any given game, maybe a touchdown or two any given game. In terms of fantasy football, it just so heavily weighs that way at the quarterback position, but I would still lean Matthew Stafford. I think he really does put up a huge spot against the Packers when most people would expect him to maybe not play as good since he hasn't played that well recently. What do you think, Tara?
It's a lot closer than you would think for me, because what tilts it is that Green Bay has been steadily improving against the pass. They're still struggling against the run, but I mean, their defense has really pulled it together with the absence of Jair Alexander. So in my opinion, I do think that it's going to be a stronger game, potentially a nice bounce back game for Darrell Henderson, but I would probably still lean towards the safety of Matt Stafford. I know it's not been safe for over the past couple of weeks, but overall, he's just the more stable option to go with. I do love Cam this week. I think he's a QB1, especially against that Miami defense and with his run upside, but I have to say Stafford. I hate to say it though.
No, that's okay. Look, we always, I should say, sometimes we give out advice reluctantly because of the circumstances that people put us in. It's not like we created that Stafford or Cam question. We just have to answer what's in front of us. All right. We appreciate everybody hanging with us. Again, hopefully you had a great Thanksgiving time with your friends, family. You ate a ton, and there's a bunch of leftovers for you to race to right now. Enjoy Sunday at It's Tara Time at the notorious FNTSY for both Tara and Nick, respectively, on Twitter. I'm at Shander Show. Thanks to Mike Awesemo for producing. Thanks to Yahoo for providing some awesome links for you to jump on. Free money and 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. The Fantasy Football Show will be back on Monday at 1 p.m. No, pardon me, Sunday. What am I talking about? Sunday, 11:45 a.m. Eastern Time. Myself, Nick, and RC, and then myself and Tara, along with Lofty, will be back on Monday. That's it. That's a lot. Have a great weekend. Eat your turkey and enjoy some football.
Adios.